Okay, it's 12:35, so let's get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming back. I know some of you are still having lunch here, so I want to introduce you to Heidi Lovell, and Heidi is, as far as I know, the Strategy and Performance Operations Manager with the Washington State Department of Enterprise Services. Did I get that right, Heidi?
Yep.
And she has 15 years of experience in government, and she's super passionate about it. I'll I'll
Where?
oops, hang on a second. I'm just gonna mute.
Oma,
I'm gonna,
we went
I'm
there
gonna
to tour.
sorry, I'm just muting people. You're gonna have to unmute yourself, Heidi, when you get started. But anyway, yes. So back to Heidi. She's on the West Coast, so she's it's morning for her still. We've got people from all over the place on the call, so time zones sort of don't matter too much. But the reason Heidi's here is because I saw her at the Results Washington, like the state government of Washington conference, annual Lean conference, and she was talking about Kanban, which is like a favorite topic of mine, and I really liked her no nonsense, like practical approach to it. So we invited her to speak here, and I think you'll love it. Um, when I was talking to Heidi, she said that she loves working in government. Like, and I was like, wow. Or I think I'm paraphrasing you, Heidi. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that you were like really passionate about working for government, and we often see people working in government who are sort of beaten down, and demoralized, and they're like, well, yeah, but the benefits are so good, I can't quit my job or whatever. But there are some people out there like Heidi who actually like love serving the public and love doing a better job. And so I think her passion and inspiration will inspire you too. So anyway, enough of me. I'll turn it over to Heidi. Take it away.
Thank you. I do. I absolutely love working for government. I love being a public servant. And that's part of why I'm happy to be here with all of you today. I know it's a really tricky time to be a public servant right now. And so I'm thankful for all of you for your dedication to just making the system better. The fact that you're here shows that you care and care about providing services to people, whether they're Canadian people or in my case American people. Um, I am grateful for all that you do. So I am going to talk today about Kanban, which Ken said it's one of his favorite topics. It's definitely one of my favorite topics. I'm really excited to talk about it today. I'm going to start with the principles, just the basic, like how do we anchor principles of Kanban, what makes Kanban Kanban, and then right away I'm going to talk about the format. I know we're living in a complicated world, and some people are virtual, and some people are hybrid, and some people are working in physical offices. So I'm going to start right away with talking about the differences between a physical and virtual Kanban, and then I'm going to get into tips. My tips are in two categories. So some tips about making it work. How do you actually do this thing? And then tips about making it last. How do you build a system that will endure and stick with you in a way that will be helpful for you in the long term? And then hopefully we'll have time for questions. In full transparency, the last time I did this presentation, I ran out of time and was not able to answer questions. I've since reduced the content, and I am still nervous about having time for questions. So if we need to just interrupt me, say, quit your talking, we got to give people a chance to ask questions, feel free to do so, Ken. I give you that permission now. This is the other thing I want to tell you a little bit about is, in addition to what we're going to talk about, is about me and my approach here. So it will be a little bit technical. Kanban is a tool, like a technical tool with rules about how to use it, and knowing that tool will give you access to the power of that tool, access to other information that can help you make your work better. So I am going to talk a little bit about the technical aspect of Kanban. but I will always talk about it in a very human way. So what drew me to Lean in the first place was this beautiful combination of all these methods and techniques and tools, really good tools that are proven and help um, the work be more efficient, combined with a deep, deep respect for people. So I love when we can take something that's technical, but then really think about the human. How does it work for people? How does it work for your brain? How does it work for my brain? And then all practical. Hopefully, by the time you leave here, you will be able to do something with Kanban. If you've never built one, I want you to be able to build one. If you've built one before, I want you to be able to make it a little bit better. You will be able to do something by the time you leave here. So speaking of your level of experience, so I want to ask a little bit about your level of experience, not your level of knowledge, but what have you actually done so far? So Ken, go ahead and launch that poll. People can start answering. I'll talk a little bit about the answer choices, but feel free to get started now. You may be in the space that you haven't built one yet. You may have built one and you're still using it. You're one of those lucky ones who first got it first try. Um, you could be in the bucket that you built one, you're not using it anymore. Or you could be in the category of those of us who've built many. And either you're still using your current one or you've given up for now. So take just a minute and talk about or answer for your level of experience.
And we can see the results in the chat, or at least I can. I hope you can too, Heidi.
Ah, I can now. Thank you for pointing that out. I did have the chat open. Great. Still see a couple answers coming in. Awesome. Sounds like we have a lot of beginners here today, which is wonderful. I'm looking forward to that. And then quite a few of us who've built many. So we've been on that and we're either using our current one or aren't using it right now, but have really like gotten into that path. And I hope what we talk about today will help your next attempt be even more successful. So for all of you beginners, which is quite a few of us, what I'm not going to do today is a Kanban 101, the very basic, like, here's what it is and here's how you get started. But I will talk about sort of the logistics, the nitty-gritty of how to actually do it and how to make it work for you. And the reason I think this is a worthy topic is because this is Kanban and this is also Kanban. There's a wide variety of things that we would say, this is the system, this counts, and I want to go through some of the tips and techniques and methods that will help you choose where on this spectrum does yours live. So this is something like, I would consider this like not a 101, but a 102. If you are a beginner, I would say watch this and then maybe go back and find a 101 and you will be so ahead of the game. You will have a whole lot more context for I can't make my Teams messages stop popping up. You would think that would be an easy thing to do, but it's refusing. So sorry. I sounded a little distracted. I was trying to get those to go away. Anyway, so if you're a beginner, watch this, go back and watch a 101. You'll be ahead of the game for sure. Speaking of Kanban 101, I can't go past this moment without a shout out to Jim Benson and his co-author and business partner, Tony Ann De Maria. Jim Benson is the author of the book Personal Kanban, essentially the inventor of the method, one of the inventors of the method, and capturing it in a way that makes it accessible to all of us. If you do need a 101, go to Jim's website. It's called personalkanban.com. Kanban.com, I think. I have a link to the website later on in this presentation. Really, really fantastic. If you need a 103, if you have gotten your basics, you've gone through this presentation, you've tried some tips, and you want even more, also go to Jim. Very good content, very good material. I can vouch for it. You'll enjoy it. So I made a claim, and this was the claim I made. I wrote it in the session description. I said that Kanban is one of the most powerful tools in the Lean toolkit. I said it's simple, instinctive, and tremendously effective. And I want to support that claim. So I want to talk about why I believe that those things are true. Um, I love Kanban, and in addition to being one of my favorite tools to use personally, it's my favorite thing to coach. So I want to share why I love it, why I think it's helpful, and why I think it's worth spending 40 minutes, 50 minutes on today. One thing is that it reduces cognitive load. The world right now is so complex. We're seeing research that says even leadership is more complicated than it ever has been. The global pace of change is accelerating significantly, and we all know that we are carrying a big cognitive load. Kanban is a tool that reduces cognitive load, and I think in this day and age that anything that we can do to reduce that cognitive load, any tool we can use, is a lifeline in our very complicated world. In addition, it helps relieve something called the Zeigarnik effect, which is a psychological phenomenon where people tend to remember unfinished tasks better than completed ones. It's actually a really cool thing your brain does to help you. It's on purpose. It wants you to remember unfinished tasks, so it will keep bringing them to your mind over and over and over again because it doesn't want you to forget. So it wants to create this state of mental tension and cognitive dissonance so that you can recall it, which is wonderful, except when you have 42 unfinished tasks and your brain is throwing them at you all the time in such a way that you can't think about the task that you're on. That isn't the most productive state. So when we use Kanban, we're relieving that Zeigarnik effect because we're reassuring our brain, I've got it. My task is on the board. I don't need to worry about it. It lets us focus. So Kanban has this lovely thing called a doing work in process limit, and it really lets us focus on one thing at a time, which then lets us use all of our brain power on that one thing instead of trying to divide our focus. You saw my focus was divided just a moment ago. We want to be able to use all of our focus on the task that we're thinking about. And then it helps us visualize progress. So even more than just checking something off of a list, Kanban is designed ready, doing, done, left, middle, right, to see work flow from left to right, from beginning to the end. And that's what our brains love. We love a beginning, middle, and an end. That's how many things, even stories are framed, tasks are framed, things have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so helping us see that flow through that type of progress is very, very satisfying. Speaking of satisfying, if you've ever tried this at all, if you've never tried a Kanban, you may have tried even just a to-do list or some other system where you take a minute or an hour or whatever it takes and you think about everything you're trying to get done and you write it all down. Either you've built a Kanban, you've got all those sticky notes up on the board, or you've got it on a to-do list and you go, I can focus, I can breathe. It's glorious, that feeling that you get of going, it's all in one place. That is the thing I'm talking about here, where we're reducing cognitive load, we're relieving the Zeigarnik effect. So that is the relief that Kanban gives our brain. I want you to remember that moment and think about what that feels like as we go through this time together today. So now that I've made my case for why you should keep listening, let's talk about what makes Kanban Kanban. These are the anchors for us to figure out if we're talking about some other system or really Kanban. Um, Kanban is designed to let you see all of your work at one time. If you have a system that helps you see parts of your work, it's not Kanban. It's also designed to help you limit your work in process. There are a lot of ways to do that on a Kanban board. It could be shadow boxes or numbers or smaller columns, whatever the case may be. But the principle here is that we cannot do 47 things at once. We can do 1 to 3 things at once. And so your system needs to help you limit your work in process. These are the two highly accepted, you'll see them everywhere, principles of Kanban. I add a third. I add this next one, which is make it easy to see what to do next. I attended some sort of presentation many years ago that had a statistic about how much time we waste in the day deciding what to do next. So the person was trying to sell me something at the time, so I didn't keep that statistic in my brain. But I think you can innately think of or recognize that, right? That moment when we've completed a task, we go, I come up for air, and then I go, oh, what do I want to do next? Should I check my email? Should I work on that task? Oh, I need to do this. No, maybe I should do that. Oh, what's my next meeting? That swirl that we can get into is not productive, and it actually wastes a lot of time in the day using our decision-making power. So if instead we have a system, a Kanban, that makes it very easy to see what to do next, we again reduce our mental load. We again are making ourselves more productive, helping focus, and that is it's the right thing to do for ourselves. So some people would include this as a tip. I include it as a principle. I think if your Kanban is not doing this, not making it easy to see what to do next, then you're not harnessing all the power that you can be harnessing. So I want to talk a little bit about what gets in the way, because at its core, it sounds really simple. Build a board, make 3 columns, column ready, doing, done, and put all your work up. And some of you in here have said, what do we say, like maybe 10% of us have either built one or many and aren't using it right now. That happens, and usually it's because of one of these reasons. These things can get in the way. The first thing I see often is making it too complicated. Almost every person I have coached in developing a Kanban starts trying to color code things, gets really excited with the post-it notes and goes, ooh, I'm going to do this project in this and this project in that. Occasionally, color coding is helpful, but most of the time I find that color coding actually is more complicated than we need. It gets in the way. People want to organize tasks by the type or the level, lots of different ways. And it's the temptation that goes, wow, I can see all my work. Now that I can see, what else could I see? And adding a lot of data, adding a lot of complexity to your cards, to your board. Most of the time, we've made it too complicated, and that gets in the way of being able to successfully use the system. On the other hand, sometimes people keep it too simple. Ready, doing, done, the very basic first 3 start column works for some folks, but a pretty small percentage of folks. Most people will start there and then adapt and find the way that works for them. Jim Benson says that almost never does your board actually look like ready, doing, done. If you tried the basic thing, went through 3 weeks and went, meh, what's the fuss about? That isn't really helping, and gave up, then what got in the way for you was probably keeping it too simple instead of adapting it to your needs. The other thing that I find gets in the way is failing to consider you and your brain and the way that you think. So it's common for someone to go, wow, that's a really cool Kanban board. I'm gonna do that now. I'm gonna use that style of board. I'm gonna copy it. Sometimes I call that copy and paste waste. Is this what works for somebody else may not work for you. So your brain impacts how you should run your Kanban. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today and the different ways that you can consider your brain when you're deciding how much information do I put on my card? Which kind of columns do I use? Um, but thinking about how to customize it to yourself. And then habits. Habits are hard. Starting a Kanban or using any system or using any lean tool, using any tool requires building a new habit. We know that we have some great science about how to start habits. I'm going to talk about some of that a little bit later today, but all habit formation requires time, attention, and effort. And you have to be able and willing to put in the time, attention, and effort to reap the benefits. And that's easier said than done. So thinking about habit formation and how to start that will help you as you go along. Okay, the big question. Almost everybody starts this question right away. But what about virtual boards? So I'm going to just dive right into this consideration. Here is my next bold declaration. I'm just declaring all over the place. There is still nothing better than Post-it notes and a Sharpie. There is still nothing better than Post-it notes and a Sharpie. The reason is if you think about a physical board, there is no such thing as screen size limits for your eyes. So when you're working in the virtual space, you only have as big as your screen is. Your eyes are fascinating and amazing. Like most of the human body, they can take in so much information as at once. So a physical board can really help you encapsulate a lot more information if you're trying to see everything that you're working with. Also, the physicality of moving notes is so uh, good for that brain chemistry, that like dopamine hit that you get is it's good to see. It's good to check things off a virtual list. It's even better to physically move something to done. The other thing that is wonderful about physical boards is you cannot hide them. You can't bury them deep in a computer file. It can't be a spreadsheet that you have to open. Um, if you can use a physical Kanban, it will be easier for you. It will be easier for you to get started. It will be easier for you to keep going. This is, of course, like the very first example, the classic one that we've always seen. If you have a whiteboard, more power to you. Column it up, do what you need to do. Other people may not have the luxury of a wall or a whiteboard. You can use your desk. You can cordon off a section of your desk and use those tiny Post-it notes, and you can still make a physical Kanban. I like mine to be beautiful. This is not mine. I make my little labels with washi tape and use some really pretty things to make my columns. I've seen people use the side of a filing cabinet. I've seen people use closet doors. I've seen people use all sorts of things to have a physical Kanban. Get very creative. If you have a wall, use a wall. We went through a space consolidation effort in a building I worked in many years ago, and they were asking what people needed. Lots of people were talking about privacy and places for conversations and collaboration. And I was on the lean team and we said, we just need walls. Please give us walls. We need places to stick our Post-it notes. So if you can do a physical Kanban, it will help you do it. And not all of us have that luxury. So If we are thinking about virtual Kanbans, these are really good for distributed teams. If you don't have a space with a wall or a desk or any flat sticky surface, you can try going virtual. If you're going to try going virtual, you want to check it against the three principles. Does my virtual system let me see all of my work at once? That's the hardest. I'm a huge Trello fan. I'm a hardcore Trello user. I use it in a lot of ways for a lot of things. But even think about in a Trello column, once you have 5 or 6 cards, they start going below the screen line and you can't see them. So you need to get creative. So think about the three principles. Can I see it all at once? Can I limit my work in process? And does this make it easy for me to do the right thing or to see the next thing to do? And then make it easy to do the right thing. So can I access it all the time? Um, if it is something like a spreadsheet, again, that is buried somewhere in your system and it's really hard to get open during the day, then you're not going to remember to use it. If you'll have to build some habits about as soon as I open my computer, I start Outlook right away, right? So I'm also going to bring up my virtual Kanban right away. And I'm going to always leave it on the right-hand screen so that it's always open. So you need to make it easy to do the right thing. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't use the most complicated system that is out there. Just find something that will help you get all the work visible and limit your work in process. And you have to make it a habit to check there next. The thing about a wall or a physical board is it's just in your eye line. So it's pretty easy to start that habit of like, oh, I started a task. Okay, now I'm going to look at my board. Okay, I'm going to grab the next thing. It's a little bit harder with a virtual board, but you can do it if you make it a habit to check there next. So I'm using a virtual thing right now against my best wishes. I'm using a virtual thing right now, and I've really had to have the habit of like it's on a website, so I have to keep the website open all the time. I hate it. I'm a tab closer. I like to keep like only the things I really need open, so it's driving me a little crazy. But every time I finish a task, I'm like, okay, gotta go look at my Kanban. So you can build that habit. I talked a little bit about Trello. I talked a little bit there are a million other apps. There's Miro, there's Mural, there's Smartsheet. There are many things to do, and people often ask me what is the best personal Kanban app, and the answer is simple. The best Kanban app is the one you will use. So you need to think about what is a system, maybe a system you're familiar with, maybe something that will work really well for you, you've used in the past. Try out a couple, see which one feels stickiest to you. You're looking for something that has all the functionality you need with few or no additional complicating features. Usually the most minimal solution is best. That goes against our normal instincts to say, oh, this has a million features. It's going to be so great. It can collect data and it can do this and that. Sometimes those things are great, but usually if you can find something simple, that's better. And then hybrid. So I'm in a situation where I work from my home much of the time, and I also go into the office at times. So this is where you get to be creative and think about what you need, where, and when. So a few examples. My colleagues teach a class called Daily Lean Practices, and they have people get a manila folder and write out a Kanban. You can see there, it has my options for my ready, my to do. It has the limits worked in process by having shadow boxes for the 3 and doing, and then I can move things to done, and I can carry that with me wherever I go. So I can, if it am at home, I could open it up next to me. If I need to go to the office, I can tuck it in my bag. In the olden days, when I used to telecommute just one day a week, when that wasn't a normal thing, I had my physical Kanban that was in my office. And then every time I was going to telecommute, I took the opportunity to think in advance about what are the things I was going to work on. I moved the Post-it notes from my normal Kanban board onto this piece of paper, which I taped onto my chair so that anyone who was coming to see me could know, visual management, right? Know that I was gone. And then I had my coworkers had a sense of what I was working on. And then I took a picture of it and I took that photo with me, and I would just pull that photo up during the day. And I would take a picture of my whole Kanban just in case I magically got done all the things I intended to do and needed more. And then when I got back, I could move all these things to the done column if I was really successful, or I could move most of them to the done column and then put other things back on the common list. The other thing I've done, again, thinking about getting creative, is I used to run a different conference, and we would get these big banners of the sponsors, and every year, and they had the year on them, we couldn't reuse them, and they weren't recyclable. So I a couple times flipped them over, built a Kanban on there, and then that was a Kanban that I could roll up and take with me. So we had a project meeting, and the project meeting was in a different conference room every week, and so we could just take the banner with us from week to week. So get creative. As I show you examples throughout this course, the examples will be a variety, some hybrid, some physical, some virtual. Think about what is going to work for you. Think about what you have access to. Okay, it's time for my tips. Heidi's helpful hints. Gotta love an alliteration. I have 4 tips about how to make it work and 4 tips about how to make it last. The first tip for making it work for you is add the right columns. So remember, we start with ready, doing, done, or some people call the ready column to do or options. The point is anything in that ready or to do or options column should be actually able to physically pick up and work on it. It should be ready to do right now with nothing getting in your way. So sometimes you would add columns called waiting or paused or blocked that help pull things that you can't actually work on out of those columns. You could also think about this week, today, assigned. These are common ones, but there's no limit to the columns that you should add. But when you're thinking about adding a column, those columns should make things clearer. So those can help you see what you're trying to see what you need to work on next, and they can help you prioritize. So if you have a lot of things in your to-do or options or ready column, and it's so much that it's hard for you to see what to do next, there are a lot of cool ways to build different columns that help you prioritize. Hot, warm, cold, low, medium, high, hate it, love it, right? There are a lot of really good ways that can help you prioritize, and those might be reasons you add columns. And again, going back to this week or today, if I want to see what I need to do right now, those might be columns that you add. But they should allow you to focus on one column when you're quickly selecting the next task. So if you're adding columns, but you've added so many columns that you have to check 3 places before you decide what to do next, then you're probably getting in your own way. You should have one column that is your single source of truth for what do you choose from when you add next. So if you're adding a column, think about what do you need your board to show you. Some examples, you can see this is a board that has park for parking lot and waiting for others. Again, those are things that help pull things out of the ready that aren't really ready. And then this one uses the this week and today system so that you can do some pre-planning and say, okay, I know I have 47 things to do. These are the 3 I'm going to focus on this week, and that helps make it quicker and easier when you're trying to decide what to do next. You've done some pre-sorting. You've given yourself a heads up. A leg up, not a heads up, a leg up. The other thing you're thinking about when you're thinking about adding to your board, you want to add the right columns to your board. You also want to add the right information to your cards. So you want detail, but you want just enough. So there's some detail that might be really helpful for your cards. So due dates for things that have a hard due date. Other info like how much time you think it might take. There are lots of information that you could add to your cards, but you want to make sure you're adding just enough so that you're helping yourself, but not confusing yourself. I would say that This is where I say that like people almost always try to color code when we start working together. So this is this human temptation towards a complication. Sometimes people want to say, oh, which project does this belong to? Almost always I've found that like knowing what project something belongs to doesn't actually help in deciding whether to pick it up. So that might be something that you can skip. You want to add slowly and only when needed. So you need to think about the trigger for you adding more information to your cards might be, oh, if I had known this piece of information, I maybe would have prioritized differently. So shoot, if I had known that this was due before that, I would have pulled it first, for example. If you have overcomplicated yourself, you will be able to tell right away if you say, oh, I need to add this to my Kanban, I'll do it later. Or, oh, shoot, I don't have the right color post-it note. I got to wait till I go to the supply room. You have made it complicated for yourself. You've gotten in your own way. I will say that this is something where you can experiment. Experimentation is good. I initially on one of my boards added dates to all of the bottom right corners, and I discovered after a few weeks, some of what I was doing was actually estimating. And so that was making the dates a little bit meaningless for me. And so now I only write things that have hard due dates. And that's okay. It was something I tried, I thought might be useful. I didn't fail. I learned. This is one of the most important things that I think people struggle with the most is finding your right level. Notice the word your in there. You need to think about your particular brain. So you can find advice on the internet that says if it takes more than 5 minutes, you need to put it on your Kanban board. You can also find advice on the internet that says if it takes less than 5 hours, don't bother putting it on your board. Those are fine guidelines, but what you really need to think about is you and your particular brain. I know that I need the little details. I need all the nitty gritty. If I don't have it, I will feel like don't have everything under control. And I need even things like call back Rebecca on my board so that I feel like I have everything that I need. I have a coworker who's a really global thinker, and if he has that level of detail on his board, he gets lost in it, feels like he can't even see the bigger picture, so he needs to kind of move up a little. You may have to experiment a little bit to find your level. What is it that you need to put on your board? But always, whether it's little details or big, you always need to start with a verb. For if I say project report on my board, but I don't know if I'm writing it, editing it, researching it, creating it, I haven't helped myself know what the task is. So always start with a verb and then be ready to adjust. If you think, you might surprise yourself. Even if you think, oh, I'm a details person, I write it all down and you start feeling slogged down, you can experiment. Try going up a level and see if that helps you. And if it doesn't, go back to your nitty gritty and then find a different way to keep yourself from getting slogged down. Be ready to adjust. You're looking for your personal sweet spot of clarity versus effort. You want it to be very easy to flow into putting tasks on your board. Again, you're looking for the system that makes it easy to do the right thing. So if I can just rattle off a task and plop it on my board and then successfully go on with my life, then I'm in a good place. And then keep it real. So include everything. Don't forget your calendar. Don't forget your email. If you have a project plan, think about how to add any start nows. Think about all the world and put it into one space. You want this to be your single source of truth. So you want to look out for the human tendency to get into the multitasking mindset. So what you don't want is a Kanban and then another queue of things to do that is in your head. You want it all on your board. When I say don't hide work from the board, what that means is if something pops up and it's coming out of nowhere and you go, oh, shoot, well, that's not what was on my board today, but I'm going to go do that. Put it on your board if you need to. I worked with one group who had a column labeled UBS, and I asked them, what on earth is that column? And they said it was unexpected, you know, unexpected BS, essentially. So they knew that they had a way to track when things popped up and they could see what was real and what was actually going on. Sometimes I see people who have 8, 9, 10 things in their doing column, and what I realize is that the thing they started, so they moved it to their doing column, and then they paused on it or something got interrupted, and they just left it in their doing column because they still feel like they're doing it. Be diligent about your doing. So if you stop a task, put it back into do. You can move something back into to do and know that it's an option for you to pick up later. Keep the things that you're actively doing in your doing. Building it to last. So some of us start a system and then think it's going really well, and then after a few weeks we fizzle out. So here's some of my tips for how to make something really last. The first is aim it at something. Things will live longer when they're in the context of some bigger picture. So think about, what problem am I trying to solve? This you can consider making a board that is in the context of your role, the expectations of you, how does it relate to your team Kanban, how does it relate to your agency strategy, so that you're connecting to some bigger purpose. One of my favorite people who I coached on Kanban asked me for help, and I asked her, what problem are we trying to solve? She said, things are coming from different directions. I can't even tell if they're right things to do for me, wrong things to do for me, if they're all equal. So we took some time to say, what is your job? What are your main buckets of responsibility? What are your goals for each of those things? What are the projects? What is your role? What are those milestones? So when her tasks come at her, she can connect them to what is her job really. This is a pretty complicated version. I'm not recommending that you build this, but I will say that thinking about how you can connect your Kanban to the bigger picture of what you're trying to do in your role will help you make it endure. The other thing is building good practices. So you can build the most perfect board, but if you're not looking there every day, if you're not using it for planning, if you're not adding to your board, then you're not going to gain those benefits that we talked about. So the first good habit is just getting tasks on your board, like constantly getting tasks on your board. If you have a task, put it up. The second good habit is looking there between tasks. Those are great. And then what I want you to think about is a planning practice and a reflection practice. So I would say that starting with planning and ending with reflection is how you can use your board in a way that's really helpful for you. I have put in as slides an example of a planning practice and an example of a reflection practice so that you can read those later. I'm not going to go through them now, other than to just say these are examples of like my planning and reflection practices. And I will say, like with everything else, think about yourself, think about your own brain, think about how to customize. So some people do their planning Monday morning. I am not a smart person on Monday morning, so I do my planning for the week on Friday afternoon. Some people plan daily, some people plan weekly, but think about your planning practice and how does it help you prepare for the week and connect to what you need to do. And then your reflection practice is like all things in lean. This is how you plan, do, check, adjust when it comes to your Kanban and really what you're working on through the day. Tip number 3, and this is actually kind of a personal mantra for me, is adapt, don't abandon. So if you start a Kanban and go, oh, well, that's just not really working for me, take some time and think about how to make it work for you. You can look at other people's Kanbans. You can try some of the tips we have here. I've included as a handout that I think will be posted on the website an audit checklist that can help you look through your Kanban and think about, how is this working for me? How am I doing? What could be better? So one thing we think about is times of stress. So if you are in a really stressful time, which happens to us all, your Kanban should actually help be your sanity during that moment. and I'm not talking about like, oh my gosh, it was this crazy week. I was away at training, whatever, and then I got back and I'm like, oh, phew, I got to update my Kanban. I got to get myself back in order. But like if you are in kind of a hectic space and you kind of abandon doing your Kanban and then you don't go back to it, then you probably haven't found the right system. So let me say that more clearly. If you abandon your system in times of stress, you have not found the right system for yourself. And what you need to do instead of going, well, that's a bad plan, is continue working to find the good system for yourself. So keep growing, adapt, and don't abandon. The last thing is to use what we know about habits. Like I said at the beginning, habits are hard and they take a little bit of effort. This format is from the brilliant author Michael Bungay Sr. in his book, The Coaching Habit, which is the hands down best book on coaching. You should all read it. But it also has stuff about the science of habits, and it talks about using this formula. So when I used to do this, or when this happens, instead of doing this old thing, I will do this new thing and then really connect to the motivation. So an example for Kanban is when I read an email, that's my trigger, but don't have time to respond. Instead of what I used to do, which is just trying to remember it later, I will, new behavior, add it responding as a task to my Kanban and then connect to why, because it lets my brain focus on one task at a time without worrying that I'll forget. I always think about that moment I've talked about where you have like everything on your Kanban and you go, ah, like that's my motivation to keep going. That's my motivation to keep up that habit. And I try to connect to that feeling when I start going, oh, for goodness sakes, I need to take a minute to write all these things down. This slide is just for those of you who like to screenshot and have a one pager that might remind you of the tips. So these are the 4 tips. What I'm not going to talk about, I guess, because I actually looked at the clock and realizing we have 4 minutes left. I just want to make one note. One of the things that I have sometimes talked about is my personal Kanban evolution, and you'll be able to see it in the slides. What I want to tell you is there are 2 slides that are labeled My Perfect Kanban. What I want you to know, and it's important to me that you know, is it doesn't say The Perfect Kanban. It says My Perfect Kanban. So this is a very complicated system, and I wouldn't recommend it for anybody else to like pick this up and try. That would be that copy and paste waste that I was talking about before. This is like the system that works for my brain after many years of evolution. And then what you can laugh about reading through later is the fact that this was my perfect Kanban. It was dependent on having a wall. I don't have a wall. I am in a space where the only space I have available to me is the space that is behind my desk and I can't reach. And I tried replicating my perfect Kanban and it didn't work. So I've tried all these different funky things. And right now, like I said, I'm trying a virtual Kanban. And I would never advise this for beginners. So you can see this is my current experiment. It's using the app called Todoist. I'm using it. It's working for me well. But if you look at it, you could see there aren't any columns, so there's not a WIP limit. I know that I am really diligent about my work in process, and my doing is only 1. I never even go to 3. And I know that about myself from years of working through doing, so I can feel safe in this type of thing where I wouldn't ever recommend that to a beginner. I don't have a column for waiting. It drives me crazy. So I kind of have to use this little header on waiting. I use the prioritization. So I want you to know when you see those slides, these are not recommendations about what you should do. It's really talking about my journey and how it's different for everybody. So the last thing I want to leave you with is thinking about is what are you inspired to do next? I hope that if you have a Kanban, you can think about what might you add, what might you take away, what might you adapt that would help you work but in a way that's more suited to your brain and more closely aligned to the principles. If you have a plan to start a Kanban, which I hope all of you do, I hope all 64% of us that haven't tried it yet will go and try one today or this weekend or something. Just try it. Just try it. It's really fun. So think about which of these tips might be most relevant to you and which might be the most helpful for you. So, like I said, in terms of resources, there is a personal Kanban audit that you can use when you are trying to figure out if you've got the right system, and that I've emailed to our excellent conference hosts. It should be on the website. And then this is a link to Jim Benson's personal Kanban introduction, which I also saw that somebody put in the chat. So thank you for that. I appreciate that because that's an excellent resource for you. This is the slide that says questions, but I think we have 1 minute left. So I don't know that we actually have time for questions, but we did finish on time. So
Thank you, Heidi.